So these are all evidence-based reading programs that you can use. So I will say, and the textbook does talk about this too, with the basal reading is very common for early grades with reading instruction. And I do want to interject here to say, even if you're a high school teacher or middle school, or if you're a gym teacher or a music teacher, you will have to give your students some kind of a reading. Even if you're in health class, they're going to have to read. And if they're having major issues, at least you'll know how to detect this so that you can even talk to the reading teacher and say, hey, this student's really struggling. Can you work with them on this topic? I mean, that would be huge bonus points for a teacher outside of that field to recognize that. That's amazing. So just keep these in mind because those basal reading programs for elementary students are typically provided by the school because they are costly. So, sorry, give me one second. I will show you a couple of them that I've already pulled up. All right, there it is. Okay, so for example, give me one second. Actually, it's like you all are live with me right now. This would happen in a classroom regardless. So give me a second with this Zoom sharing. I'm going to come right back over here because these are the strategies. So right here, you have effective strategies for alphabetics, phonological, if I could even say that, awareness and phonics, fluency and comprehension. So spell read and ladders to literacy are very good programs for working on these aspects. So I wanted to show you what these look like. I don't know why that looks a little bit blurry, but they come in packages like this, and they give you very direct instructions on how to use them. They will have cards for the students to use and prompts and cues, and same with this Ladders to Literacy book. And this one in particular is for kindergarten, but I'm sure they have multiple on different age groups. And it's very specific. I mean, it's going to lay out exactly what you need to say, exactly what you need to do, and that's really nice to have. Then there's effective strategies for alphabetics and comprehension. So if you wanted to work on those specifically, these are programs that maybe your school will provide for you. This one's got a lot of, so you can see the little letters, and it gives you activities and something to stick them on so that they can practice. Really great. And then this PALS question here, this is reading strategies that people can do in pairs or in partners. So if you wanted to incorporate some of those Kagan strategies using this, it gives you a lot of options with that. Then over here, we have effective strategies for the alphabetics and fluency. So if you did that reading record and your students are really struggling with fluency and reading things properly and all the way through as they should, you could try these out. So this is a corrective reading series, and once again, it gives you step-by-step instructions. It gives you everything that you need. This program over here comes with a computer game, which kids love, and you might even find computer games out there that aren't listed here, but that's a great way to give your students, if you have any quote-unquote free time or reward time, you could even use these types of games so that they're still learning in their rewards, right? That's always a good tactic. So keep these in mind. Your school may or may not have them, but if you know what program works for each strategy and you know overall your students are struggling with fluency, then you could ask for that. These are technology-based reading programs for struggling readers. Really good programs that are research-based. This is what I'm going to move over here. So you'll find things like this where this academy is really nice and it has math and reading and it goes through all of this. Now, I'm not 100% sure if there's anything free about this because usually these are programs, I don't know why that says that right there, but you can kind of click through this and see if there's anything free. Typically, I think it's going to cost, and I don't know why those aren't showing up, but just that's something that you can at least look through. Read 180 is something you've probably heard about. It's a very common reading program. It's going to end up looking like those packages where it tells you exactly what to say, what to do, gives you the prompts, gives you the worksheets. And this is something that the school should have on hand, or at least something like it, so that you can teach your students. This is just a little bit more about it. It gives you an overview, what it does. You could also look up YouTube videos if you're curious and think, oh, I want to know more about Read 180. I'm sure that they have some videos showing how it is applied, but I want you to at least have heard of this by me talking about it, because I guarantee you're going to see it out in the school system somewhere, because it's a very common one. But they're so expensive that typically it's the school that buys it and not the teacher. So keep that in mind. This is another strategy. Before I show you that, I'm going to have to jump back and forth a little bit. So these are strategies to support reading through technology. So we have, and I think some of these will cost, but it's something, of course, if you really think it's going to help your students, you research it a little bit more, you could bring it to your principal and say, I think this will be very helpful. School budgets are usually tight, so I can't guarantee that they're going to say yes, but at least you could try and bring it to their attention. So this JAWS screen reader, which I'm going to show you in a second, is meant for students with low vision or some type of vision impairment or blindness. So is Learning Alley. Then we have this Kurzweil. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. That gives you a lot of text to speech, different types of ways to help students who are struggling to learn. This is UDL Book Builder. This is fun. We've learned about UDL quite a bit, that you can create, share, publish, and read digital books. You can do a lot of things there. Just to show you what that looks like. And I'm showing you these things because when I see it in a textbook, it's very hard to just bring it to life. So that's my whole point, is to give you some more visuals of what it will look like for you. So this is a screen reader, and it does help with, like it says here, provides speech and braille output for most popular computer applications. And it allows them to navigate the internet, write a document, read an email, create presentations. So it's a great accommodation for our students with any type of low vision or vision impairment. Then this is the one that I could not pronounce, the Kurzweil, I believe. And this just gives you a lot of different differentiation tactics. And when they're reading, they can click on certain paragraphs and have it read to them. It's a very great tool, and it shows you how it's actually hitting the brain from different areas to improve the literacy. I think it even helps them to format it and write. So this would probably be good for some of the older students as well. I would recommend looking into that. This one here, the Learning Alley audiobook, is helping students who have, like we talked about, the vision impairment, to hear what they're reading, so that it gives a ton of book options. So whatever you're reading in class, it could give you an option that you could give the student this, instead of saying that they have to read it. You can at least accommodate with it. It's a really good program. And this is the UDL Book Builder. You'd have to explore it a little bit, but it allows you to create and edit books, share books. It's just a fun and creative way to get them involved in their reading. Okay, back over here. These are just some classroom strategies for effective tier 1 when it comes to writing. You are going to cover this a little bit in your reading guide, so I'm not going to go over it in depth, but just keep in mind that if you don't know what to do and you're a general ed teacher or assisting a general ed teacher, these are things that you can set up as routines and procedures during your writing time. For example, use a predictable writing routine as they reflect and revise on their work. So every time they write and revise, you could say, okay, first let's brainstorm, let's collect our thoughts, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, now let's have a peer edit. So whatever you do with your writing, maybe every day or once a week, you have the same system. So they always know what's coming. That's a good strategy. work on a range of writing activities daily. You can incorporate it if you're an elementary teacher into multiple fields. Even if you're teaching science, you can still use writing, right? That goes all the way through. Students work cooperatively with others to assist in the writing process. That means they could write something, then they pass it to a partner. Maybe you could take their names off it if you're worried about it, or fold the name under. They could score it, give it back, and then you grade it at the very end after it's already been refined, right? Tons more options. I'm not going to read them all, but I wanted you to, that would stick out to you. These are also some really good strategies. So let's see, if you're wanting to teach them how to plan, in your textbook, you're going to see the different steps of writing and planning, drafting, sharing, evaluating, revising, and editing. And if any of the students are struggling on any one of these levels, they give you something to do here. So POW, you could put it up on your classroom board. You could teach them what POW means. You could say, all right, we're going to have a POW chat, or you can make up some cool thing around POW, like a superhero, whatever you want to do, make it fun. But then they're going to pick the ideas, decide what to write about. That's the first part of POW. Organize their notes with the brainstorming and organizing it, and then write and say more. So that's POW. And you can make it fun and say, okay, you can even let them wear their favorite superhero outfit that day if the school allows it, have a whole POW thing, whatever it takes. Just make learning fun as you go along too. But these are just some good ideas. Ordering, ideas outlining, that's teaching them how to do that. I thought this one was fun with sharing, author's chair. Sit in a special chair in front of peers and read their writing. You want to teach them how to self-evaluate their own work, self-monitor. So it teaches them to realize if their ideas are clear, if they have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Does it connect with the reader? These are just things that they need to learn, but you can also make them fun and have some good activities. Most of these are for elementary and maybe early middle school, but you could probably enhance them if you're a high school teacher. And if you are a high school English teacher, then you're going to have a lot of classes on this. So I'm not going to go too much in depth on that aspect. These are also really good tools that you could use. Some of them seem to be outdated because I couldn't find the website. But for the ones that I did find, let's go back over. This Dawn Johnston, I believe. This website has a lot of different programs that you can use. I have a feeling, I'm thinking that this one is more so free, but do not quote me on that. You'll need to explore it a bit more. But it allows word prediction, speech recognition, and language support, kickstarting the idea. Let's go back. Inside, available as a Google Chrome extension. That's a fun one. Snap and Read, another Google Chrome. So these are good for some of your older kids too, and probably also young. This looks like the chart I just made with collecting data, so that's funny. And QuizBot, automated quiz creator for Google Forms. This could be good for you to use to quiz them, or they can make their own quizzes and they have to share it with their class. Do something like that. Readtopia, first author. So I would recommend using this even if you're tutoring. I think that's a good strategy. Well, that one just quit on me. Let's see if it'll come back. It is deciding that's a no. All right, so you can just Google this on your own if you'd like, inspiration.com/kidspiration, and it also gives some cool reading activities and writing activities for students. Then there's Read Write Gold, which is a very popular, it's hit a giant phase, and it's very evidence-based as well. Couldn't find the site that looked better than this, but at least wanted you to see the information about it. And obviously it's going to cost something, so once again, that's probably something your school would buy. This is a fun one. Once again, things cost. Once a program is really good, whoever makes them, I guess that's just what you do when you make a good curriculum. You charge for it, I suppose, but that seems to be what it's coming to. So I don't know if it's necessarily something you could just buy yourself. This is $70, so maybe you could get it for your classroom. It's a word bank, and this is very good UDL. So they could type the word in, some pictures come up, and then it gives you some other ideas. So PicsWriter, it gives you pictures, and that's very helpful for students who are struggling with comprehension or even fluency in general. And I bet, yeah, it says the word so they can hear it, they can see it, they can see a picture of it, and it just helps them connect everything. And the last one I wanted to show you here is this Dragon Speak, I believe. They call it Dragon typically, and it's by Nuance. And it is something I think would have to be purchased once again, but the schools usually have it. Sometimes parents will buy it for their students. And if a child has a fine motor issue or is not able to write very well, or there's some other issue, this allows them to speak what they want to say, and it writes it for them, which is very nice. And there's also a Dragon Anywhere. So if most kids have a cell phone this day, unfortunately, in my opinion. I have a lot of research on that, but we won't get into that. But here it allows, I think it's try for free. So you can even download Dragon and see what it's like and see how it works, so that if you want to use it for your students one day. Pretty cool. And as you can see, it gets pretty pricey after the trial period. So be careful not to get a charge on your account. Make sure to cancel it if it is an automatic payment afterwards. I don't know, but I wanted to warn you about that. Let's see. I think that's about what I wanted to show you there for reading and writing. Okay, so those are just some strategies that you can think about that you'll probably see when you start teaching as well. For math, these are good principles, and you're going to talk a little bit about this in your reading guide, so I'm not going to go over this in depth. But I liked this because it says if the practice is enhance children's natural interest in mathematics and their disposition to use it to make sense of their physical and social world. So then they give you application and example. Encourage children to sort, classify, compare quantities, noticeable shapes and patterns, provide positive experiences in problem solving. So you give, if there's a really young student, give them a bunch of shapes that you put in front of them. How many squares are there? What shape is this? And then you just have them compare and contrast, right? So that whole list is there as a resource for you. This is also another resource, things that you can do. That was also in your reading guide, so I'm not going to go over that. I liked this also because if you are screening students in kindergarten and first grade, and this is where, even though they only talk about kindergarten and first grade here, you could also look up mathematics screening for whatever grade you're teaching. So these are things that those students need to know, and here's how you can assess them. If you want to know if they can do magnitude comparison, you're going to see if they can group items that are larger or smaller, that they know how it is compared to each other. So you could say, put all the big items in one group. Now put all the small items in a group. And if they can do that, great. If they can't, you know what you need to work on. And same with all of these. You could ask them, how much is 4 plus 2? How much is 6 minus 1? If you had 9 dimes and lost 2, how many would you have left? So after you get through all of these quiz questions, once again, you make that chart like I had shown you before and rate them based on how many things that they know for each category. And if you see that they're in the green, great. Maybe give them some challenging work. If they're in the yellow, it's probably on average. If they're in the red, then at that point, you need to get into tier 2 pretty quickly, or at least understand it could be heading that way. So always assess at the beginning of the year for reading and math, at least know where your students are. Here are some formal. So I, a lot of times as a teacher, did a lot of informal testing. I would figure out the standards from the previous year, like I said before, at the very end of the last year, pick some problems that match those standards and test them and score it and see what I'm working with. Whereas you could also do formal testing, but these will cost big bucks. So it has to be something that your school already has at hand, and the chances of that are unknown. I thought this was funny. I just looked down and I saw that this goes up to 90 years old, 85, 90. So it looks like we could take this too. So these are some of these: Woodcock-Johnson, Kaufman test. These have been around forever, and they are very reliable evidence-based practice tests. Okay. This I thought you would be interested in. These are examples of virtual manipulatives. Some of these could be used via computer. So if you are working with students on Zoom, which if some reason COVID is not gone by the time you graduate, I hope it's gone. But here are some virtual ways that you could use manipulatives instead of just the typical. But each one can be used in person as well. These are base 10 blocks. There are programs out there that will help students manipulate these online, as well as you can buy these packages. Most schools already have them. And it teaches them just that concept of base 10. So 10, I believe, if we're looking at 100, I haven't counted them all. And then ones individually so that they could start counting and figuring everything out. Pan's balance, this is a fun computer game so that you could figure out, okay, which is less, which one's more, how do you balance equations? This is good when you're getting into low-level algebra, right? Probably in middle school, early high school. Tangrams, I believe, or you might know how to say that better than me, but these are things that they learn, shapes and how things fit together. You can work with those in your math class. And then these I've seen used a lot. These are used frequently in math. And they're these little bars that come, and each bar means a certain fraction type. So one whole might be blue, halves might be red, and it goes all the way down. And then it teaches them to understand, because fractions are so abstract. Like I told you before, I worked on a grant teaching at UK, teaching students how to understand fractions better. It's such a great, just a great concept. I really enjoyed it, and the students really learned, but we did use these at times too, where we broke it down because it's hard to understand. Okay, so how many fourths does it take to make a half? And you're thinking, four is bigger. That must be bigger than a half. But the truth is, the smaller the bottom number is, the bigger it is, right? So it's a very difficult concept, and these will help them. And then finally, you can do number lines and things like this as well, even though that looks confusing to me, but you can make yours look better than this. But it does help. The more you can make things visual or act them out or measure things in the classroom, the more concrete you can make it and application-based, the better it will be for your students who are in that tier 2 and even tier 1 as well. So just keep that in mind. That is actually all that I have to say for right now. Wanted to just walk you through some of the strategies. I'm sorry that most strategies that are evidence-based are expensive, and I hate that that's the case. But that means your school should either have them, or you can ask them if they could get it, or if they have a substitute for that program. Also, don't be afraid to look online and just type in fluency word games online, or as long as you have done this, where you have tested what they are supposed to know and see how well they're able to do it, and you've got this whole chart color-coded and beautiful, then you can go find resources that are free as well. I highly recommend that, because as a teacher, your budget is low. So just to be real, but that's pretty much it. If you have questions, your textbook's going to fill in a lot of those gaps and give you some more strategies and more ideas. I just wanted to walk you through some of those boxes today. This is the last lecture, you all. Thanks for sticking with me, and you've been a joy. So let me know if you need anything at all. You'll get a final review for chapters 1 through 3. I'm going to give you a reading guide format, since we didn't do reading guides the first 3 chapters, and then just start studying 4 through 12 until I get those to you, okay? That's about it. Have a great week, and talk to you later.